You're tuning in to Ready, Set, Reset, where our goal is to help listeners reset their outlook by talking more about mental health from different perspectives. We visit with a range of professionals across the field to get their input and insight on what's really going on. Our current series focuses on unraveling and understanding impacts of life transitions. We all go through it, but it's a matter of how we get through it. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational and motivational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional training or personal therapy. Hello, good people. Welcome to Ready, Set, Reset. I'm your host, Sierra O'Neill, licensed professional counselor. If you're listening right now and you want to improve yourself, try something you've never tried before, because trying something different allows you to learn something about yourself, which then often leads to growth. So why not? On today's episode, I have mental health advocate and professional, Texas Tech alumni, craft enthusiast, adventurous explorer, Miss Emily Hill. Say hello, Emily. Tell the audience more about yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am a mental health professional in a sense. I have a degree in psychology and addiction recovery studies. I have done several admin roles in mental health and have been in the field for about 5 years.
Okay, so Emily, tell us a little bit more about your time in the field and how you landed in mental health compared to where your career started.
Sure. So when my husband and I finished up at Texas Tech, we decided to move to Colorado, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a few, and realized that we didn't want to be so far from family. So we moved back, and I knew that in order to pursue like being a clinician or a licensed professional counselor, I would have to go to grad school. But life was just a little unsteady then with the moves that we had had back to back. So I actually got into HR when he and I moved up here to DFW. Quickly realized that was not what I wanted to do. I did, gain some professional skills. There was definitely some emotional growth with it. But that actually led me to a partial hospitalization facility where we met, working with kiddos. I was doing admin roles there as well, outpatient coordinator. And just realized that, mental health was the field that I wanted to be in, and that, my degree was useful, of course, even though I didn't, pursue that graduate degree or that clinical licensure. So I'm happy with, being the admin support role and still being in the field and getting to utilize my strengths and whatnot, frankly, without the financial commitment of pursuing another degree. Y'all know how crazy it is out there economy-wise, so...
Okay, so with that, if you spoke to it further, what's your favorite thing about working in mental health?
Yeah, I really just love the experiences that people are able to recover from and learn from, and it's really cool to me seeing people kind of have that light bulb moment, especially kiddos, having that light bulb moment that they really do have agency over their life and over their future, and just because their past was a certain way doesn't mean that their future has to be that way too.
That is so true. That is something I wish more people could realize. The past sometimes it just keeps people so stuck, and it's surprising sometimes, but it's a real thing. So, in addition to mental health, there's other work that you do. You have a local craft business. So, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I'm a firm believer that positive mental health includes a creative outlet. I grew up crafting and drawing and painting and whatnot, and so that has always been part of my life. And then just realizing as I got older that people liked what I did and that they were willing to purchase it. That was a really cool feeling. So a couple of years ago, I got a Cricut machine and have just been playing with it ever since. I do have a little small business, Bright Soul Market on Instagram.
Okay, y'all go follow.
Yes, go follow, check me out. You can submit orders through there. I do have some house designs that I work on. I do custom glassware, leather goods, personalized accessories, just a kind of a nutshell. And then I do a lot of, custom requests and whatnot. I've made paper goods and cards and banners and, I pretty much dabble in anything craft related. So really enjoy doing that, and it helps helps with that work-life balance and that self-care aspect that everybody needs. But I feel like especially people working in mental health, it's particularly important to make sure that I can perform how I need to at work and get my own stuff sorted out.
Okay, sweet. Well, thanks for sharing more about your business. Again, that's Bright Soul Market. And I know, with you, Emily, you're a go-getter. So whatever you put your mind to, you're gonna go for it. And quite the creative mind, I will add there. So today we're talking about that leap of faith it takes to relocate from your hometown and try something new. It's a major step for most people in a positive directions, but for some, it's frowned upon in their families or it's the norm in others. And, with this can come a lot. So that transition can, be a lot mentally, emotionally, socially, financially, and even physically. So Emily and I are going to explore, this a little bit more as Emily has firsthand personal experience on what that's been like. So, Emily, first question: how many states and cities have you lived in?
So this was funny. I actually had to count just to tell you how many it's been. So I have lived in 2 states and 8 cities. My least favorite part of any job application, background check, whatever it may be, is list your previous addresses.
Up to what, 5, 7 years?
Oh my gosh, yes. I had one that said 10 years one time, and I was like, I literally, like, I had to make myself a Word document to remember all these dang addresses. Yes. So yes, my in-laws lovingly referred to me as a nomad. So, um, I'm from Texas. Grew up in a small town off I-20, Abilene, if anybody's familiar. And then, yeah, just kind of have been, hopped all over the state. And that's just living. Like, I also like to travel for fun. So I feel like I am definitely one of those people that gets wanderlust pretty hardcore. So.
Okay. All right, Emily. Well, quite the navigator there. I have just 3 cities on my record, and one of those
Oh my
was
gosh.
in college. So, I'm a Dallas girl. I don't stray too far away, but just being in DFW in general, I'm good here. But hey, I've wondered about venturing to another state, maybe even another country, but haven't quite got the courage there. So, with that, what was it like the first time you relocated?
Yeah, so as I was thinking about this morning, trying to get some cohesive thoughts together, I actually consider 2 moves to be my first one. One of them, my actual first move, was moving out of my parents' home and going to college. So it was my childhood bedroom to
Right.
the
Okay.
dorm was my first actual move, and that of course was it was a challenge and it was a transition, but it's a pretty common one. I feel like, that most people are able to work through pretty successfully. I was one of those kids. I was really excited to move out of my small town. Just for some perspective, I graduated high school with about 80 kids, so tiny little place.
Wow, everybody knew everybody, huh?
Everybody knew. Sometimes people knew stuff about you before you did. So Lubbock, when I moved to Texas Tech, was actually a really great stepping stone for me because it was big enough that it felt new and exciting, but not so big that I got distracted from my studies. I had considered, moving to Austin or moving
Hmm.
to Dallas for college, and it's like that would have been a completely different path.
Yeah, you would have definitely been distracted in Austin.
Definitely, yes, absolutely. So Lubbock was, it has a special place in my heart. We'll just put it
Okay.
that way.
Shout out to Lubbock.
But yeah, so that was really cool. And then my second first move was after we graduated. So I met my boyfriend at the time, but we got engaged, and we had enough money in the bank to either get married or move to Colorado. And so we decided to move. We had both grown up vacationing there with family,
Okay.
camping trips and things like that separately. We didn't know each other as kiddos, but that was kind of cool to figure out, that we had some of similar experiences growing up traveling with family and whatnot. And for any of you who have ever been to Lubbock, Colorado scenery is like the opposite.
I
Like
bet.
Lubbock is flat and dry and dusty, and we just wanted to be somewhere green with, oh, it's so bad. We just wanted to be somewhere that was beautiful, and Colorado was awesome. So that taking that leap
Mhm.
and moving, several hours away to a new state, we knew nobody but each other. I think that move really deserves a place as kind of a first move situation, because it was really the biggest change that we had made.
Yeah, okay. So talk to me about when y'all were deciding to make this moves and the feelings that were associated going from being in a state where, y'all have family everywhere, friends, your life is pretty much established, then saying, hey, we're going to start over. We're going to move to a different state. And what were prior conversations and feelings that you had?
So I laugh because this is actually a really funny story. I like to tell people we moved to Colorado out of spite. um, so kind of a rundown, long story short. So we graduated in 2016. So January 2016, our plan was to stay in Lubbock for a couple of years, save up money and then kind of decide what we wanted to do. By March of 2016, we decided we were going to move here to Dallas to be closer to some of our other family that we hadn't lived near. And then by the summer, I was trying to talk my husband into moving to Austin because I thought it was cooler than Dallas. And it just came to a point, that was a really rough time in our relationship because we were both trying to graduate and finish up. We had, family pulling us all kinds of different ways. Our hearts and our opinions were kind of going in different ways. And we had a come to Jesus, if you will, where I said, I can't move to Dallas. And he said, well, I can't move to Austin. And I said, okay, well, the one place we agree on is Colorado. So let's go there. And it's just crazy thinking back. I still can't believe we did this. We went for a weekend trip. We drove from Lubbock to Colorado Springs. We toured 6 apartment buildings and then drove back home so I could be at work the next day.
Dang, a turnaround.
It was
trip
intense.
to Colorado.
But I think that displays our stubbornness too. And thankfully it was in a positive way at this point because we found an apartment and 2 weeks later I graduated, and then the next weekend we moved to Colorado.
Wow, y'all moved right after graduation?
Yep. Like right after. Yeah, it was nuts.
Well, with that being the case, let me ask you this, because after you graduate, you're an adult, a young adult, but families expect you to come back home, right? And I personally, I went through that myself. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty standard to go back home after you graduate, and is the expectation. So what was the response and support like from your family when you said, hey, I'm not coming back home. I'm actually going to another state with my boyfriend.
Bye.
Going to another state.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of had a few different perspectives. So my husband was born and raised in Lubbock. So we were, geographically really close to his mom and stepdad there, and his, friends that he had known for years and gone to high school with and all that. So we had that kind of, I think from them, it was mostly surprise. Like, they understood that it was Chris's time to kind of get out of the nest, so they were disappointed that we wouldn't be close, but I think they kind of, understood in a way. Whereas my family, I was actually thinking back about this, so when my mom grew up with my uncles and everything, my grandma and them had moved around quite a bit, but it had always been as a family unit. So they would go everywhere together pretty much. And so with me, growing up in small town in Abilene with my parents, and then I had a lot of family here in Dallas, like you said, they just, it was almost like there was no question in their mind that I would be in Dallas. Or in Abilene. I kind of think of Dallas as a second home because we would come up here so much as a kid. But yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, that was definitely the expectation. I mean, we thought that, at a certain point. And so I remember calling my mom, and it was like I could see her jaw drop through the phone, and I feel like they really tried their best to have boundaries and be supportive, but the kind of shock and hesitation was coming through, and it was one of those things that's like, and I feel like anybody getting into a serious relationship as a young person, like I met my husband when I was 20, that's pretty young, especially for today's standards. I think everybody was a little like, it was just uncharted territory for the family, really. And but it was something we needed to do for ourselves. And, bless both of our families. I love my in-laws. I love my family. But we had a lot of chatter in our years, especially leading up to graduation and stuff. So it was just time to have kind of a break from everything and really, solidify our relationship. Yeah. And we knew that something this monumentous would either break us up or we would be together forever. So
and y'all said, hey, let's take that risk.
Exactly. So far we're going good.
But hey, y'all stepped out there on faith together and took that risk, knowing that, hey, this is going to be for the best for us. And at the end of the day, that's the choice that we have to make, and that's for us. So, speaking of making a choice and moving, I feel like there used to be a lot of people that wanted to be actors and singers, and they were just taking off going to California to chase their dreams, right? I've had a
Oh
few
my gosh,
family
yeah, no
members
kidding.
and friends that took that step, and it's expensive in California. So, in comparison to Texas, there was that worry from family and friends that, the anticipation of struggling when they get out there, and just that big worry because it is so different. And real quick, by the way, Californians, please stop coming to Texas buying up all our houses for cash and helping the prices stay high. It doesn't help. But anyway, but yeah, when you look at the family dynamics, it is something that sometimes it's a thing, and there are a lot of emotions tied to that chatter in your ear, right? So questioning your choice, saying you're going to fail, it's not going to work out, this is a stupid idea. But I'm wondering with you, did you get any of that from your family?
I did actually, and
Okay.
it's funny. There was chatter about our choice, and then there was also, a little bit of chatter about us as a couple, and that was, something else for us to work through. And I don't fault any of our family for that now because we were so young. And I mean, I feel like we both had really good heads on our shoulders, and it was, at risk of sounding cliche, this like meeting my husband was truly an experience that I didn't know was possible. Like, I don't want to call it love at first sight because, it wasn't even really a physical thing like that. It was just one of those things that's like, from our first date, it was like, wow, like I just really love spending time with this person. We got engaged really quickly. We moved in pretty quickly.
Yeah, I
And
get
so I
that.
can understand why our parents, I feel like they felt like they had to be overly cautious to compensate for us not being cautious, if that makes sense. So I don't fault them for that. But we definitely got resistance of like, the financial thing was coming up, and it's like, what are you going to do for jobs? You don't move anywhere unless you have a job already. And it's like, hey, we're out of here in 2 weeks. Like, there's not time for that right now. Like, exactly, like it's done. So and I think we gained a lot of respect from our family for that. Like, hey, we love each other and we are gonna be a thing. So we're gonna go figure our stuff out. Hopefully y'all can figure your stuff out. And then when we moved back, it was all gravy after that. But yeah, it was just one of those things. Like, we were both stubborn enough to be like, no, we're not going to listen to this doubt. We're not going to listen to this fear of others or within ourselves. And we're just going to go make it happen.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned fear because that's what it is a lot of the times. Other people, especially parents or family, inflicting their own fear on you, thinking, well, I couldn't do something like that. So why would you be able to do something like that, right? Or, that's the kind of generational stuff that gets passed on if we don't do a review of the norms we grew up with and just try something new, try something outside of the box. Especially, if you grew up in Texas, with stepping outside of the box, not saying relocate or move, but you have to get out of Texas at some point and at least visit other states a little bit more. So, your view of the world is not so narrow, right? And it's
Absolutely. And like, I love Texas. I'm glad to be back in it. But yeah, I mean, the world is so big, and it's crazy too thinking about traveling because it's like you look at these other countries that are so beautiful, and it's like, man, you just look at the United States and there's so much to see here. It's like endless adventures.
No, and it's stuff here in Texas for sure, right? So, just to kind of go back and piggyback off of what you were saying earlier, so I was in a similar situation when I graduated college. You said your timeline for when y'all moved, and I reflected back, and I'm like, oh dang, my decision to relocate was around that same timeline of about 2 or 3 weeks before graduation. After I officially made my choice, I told my family and that I was moving in with my boyfriend instead of going back home. And, I remember the shock from some, like, what do you mean? Because the expectation, of course, was to come on back home, and I get it. But personally, for me to grow and see what's out there for me, I couldn't go back to Dallas, I felt like. I just didn't want to go back. back home and be in the same environment. I mean, it was nothing terrible about it. Let me just put that out there. But I just knew after that, when I went to school, I was in a small town in East Texas, and that was fine for me. So going back to a big city wasn't just the top of my agenda, right? But I'm like, I just wanted more and felt, ready to see what I can do next on my own, start figuring things out. And like you said, I was up to the challenge to take that risk. If failure comes knowing that other people, were expecting that, I was ready for it, But just thinking it's not going to work out, again, and young love too. My husband and I, we were young when we got together, and here we are 10 years later, still rocking, right? So I feel like personally, if I didn't take that step and transition and move outside of my home and family after college, that I wouldn't be in the place that I am in now. Not saying I'd be in a bad place, but with the move, I had so many opportunities early on that opened up for being in a different city and, a different county just to explore the other side of DFW besides Dallas, especially when it comes to the driving. But that's for another episode. So, with that, Emily, and all of the things you went through, talk to me about the adjustment period, whether it be in Colorado or some of the other cities you relocated in, and how that was.
Yeah, sure. So just real quick, a note on the fear thing. This is actually something that's personally important to me in my growth and mental health journey. Is that one time somebody
Okay.
told me that the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. And that just really spoke to me. And I think that was kind of something that we had to lean on of like, we can't control what other people are thinking or feeling or what vibes they're putting out there towards us, but we are not going to be afraid, and that was a huge part of having a partner that we were going to go on this adventure together. That I was very blessed with that, and that fact is not lost on me that things could have gone very differently if I had done this completely on my own. But two kids just deciding they wanted to go somewhere pretty. It worked out pretty good. So, anywho, but yeah, as far as the transition period, so this was back, like I said, back in 2016. So the economy was a little bit different, things like that. At that time, it's funny kind of seeing full circle because now how Texans are about Californians is how Coloradans were about Texans. So, yeah, it's like everybody thought we were moving there for the wrong reasons. And it's like the uh, yeah. So, we faced a lot of judgment when we moved up there, and like literally, I remember a time I was at a happy hour with a coworker with some of her like local friends or whatever, and I said something about being from Texas, and their attitudes completely changed. Like they had me all figured out, and that I was, just there to mooch off the, benefits of being in the state and whatnot. Which was wrong. Like I said, we had, Chris and I had wanted to move to Colorado ever since we were kids. So, anywho, ignore the haters is the motto for that period in our life. But no, the transition, it was crazy. It was really exhilarating, to be honest. I mean, once we got our feet in our new apartment, and we had our little dog with us, and we just felt like we were a little family now, and we scrambled to get jobs. I mean, I was working part time at the mall, like shout out to Citadel Mall, Colorado Springs, and Chris was working at a Jeep scrap yard. I mean, we literally were like, we will do anything to make this work and not go back home with our tails tucked.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay. So what did make y'all come back to Texas?
Yeah, so we really liked being in Colorado, but it really just came down to family. So in 2017, so we had been there for about a year. My little cousin was born in October. Mine and Chris's two best friends married each other like a week later. My dad passed away, and then a month later, Chris's grandma passed. And it was like, when you miss that much, the happy and the sad, and like, not being there for, we didn't know, that my dad was going to pass, of course, but like not being available to be there for his last time was really tough. And then it was like, it got to the point where we had already decided to move back, like at the end of our lease, after my dad passed away. And then when Chris's grandma passed so close too, it was like, okay, God, we hear you. Like we'll go back home now. So
And sometimes it takes things like that to point out to you that maybe this was the right move initially, but now maybe it's time to go back, and that's
Yeah.
okay. People do that. They move around and they test the water in some areas and somewhere else before they decide to settle. So with relocating back to Texas, it seems like for you and your husband, the transitions, didn't stop there. Just coming back to Texas because y'all came back to Texas trying to figure this out. What part of Texas? And Texas is not small. It's so big. There's no central location. So what was it like maneuvering around before you and your husband felt like, okay, we'll settle here. This is it.
Yeah, so it's funny because it's like the foot never came off the gas, really. Once we moved back. So, when we moved back to Texas, we actually went back to Lubbock, just because that was like my in-laws there had a place for us to stay. They had like a little mother-in-law suite that we could stay in, and financially that was a smart move because we weren't having to shell out all this money to move and then immediately go into paying new rent and deposit and all that stuff. So we moved back with them, did that for a little bit, got an apartment, tried to make it work. I'd looked into going back to grad school at the time, but we were working for a small business, and it just, unfortunately, monetarily, it just didn't make sense to keep staying. Lubbock is a very niche place as far as like you'll make good money if you're in oil, farming, healthcare, or you work for the university. And we don't want to do any of that. So we decided to move up here to DFW. We moved in with my other in-laws, Chris's dad and stepmom. We're very grateful that we had kind of that soft landing, to come up here too and kind of see how we like things. The economy is completely different here in DFW than it was in Lubbock. So we, easily found jobs that it's funny back at that time. So by this time it was 2019,
COVID,
I think,
yeah.
is when we moved up here. Right before COVID. Yeah, right before COVID changed everything. So I mean, we thought we were just rolling in the dough. It was really cool feeling to kind of be starting over again and actually have some solid ground under us. And so we lived, like I said, with the in-laws, not realizing that they were going to be moving soon. So we actually moved twice with them. And then, once we got our jobs and everything like that, that's when I got into HR. So once we got our jobs and everything, Chris got into sales, and we got our little rent house over in Little Elm. And yeah, it was just starting over again. But this time it was more comforting because we were still dealing with grief, and we were still dealing with, getting through the losses, and we were so grateful to be close to family. I have two uncles up here, and my grandma eventually moved up here to DFW, so it just felt like, all was right in the world, essentially. And then COVID hit, and I don't think anybody can say that, for 2020. So yeah, and then we've just kind of hopped around DFW. Chris and I are both, small town people at heart. So we like being on the outskirts. We're down in Mansfield now. And that's, of all the places we've lived in DFW, this has been my favorite for sure. Because it's like, I can get around in 10 minutes if I need to. But if we want to go do something fun in Dallas or Fort Worth, it's right there. So, mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mansfield is real convenient, and y'all are right at the split there between Fort Worth and Dallas. So, okay, well, just kind of all in all, with that, tell me the scariest thing maybe that hit you about relocating if you think about all the times you relocated.
Man, I think the scariest thing was just the uncertainty, in general. And I think that's pretty understandable because it's like we're at least I think I kind of drug Chris into this mentality, but I'm a very like I have confidence that things will work out. I have confidence in my abilities and my problem solving skills, and I have confidence that universe or the God or whatever you want to call it will take care of us. And it's just one of those things that's like you don't know until you try, and the only person that can feel shame or regret about something is you, because other people's opinions, like, yeah, you may hear them, but just because they're throwing them at you doesn't mean you have to pick them up and carry them
Oh,
around,
yeah, opinions, especially when it comes to the familial opinions. You know how when things come from family, those hold a lot more weight than other people's, right? So I know we have friends that are just as close as family, but it's just something about when our family have their opinion, and when we look back at it, we grew up seeing people or us personally give in to them so easily at times, and with the sayings of like, well, if grandma or dad said it, it must be a bad idea. If they said so, it's not a good idea. Well, my thought is, when will you have a mind of your own, and just kind of step out of the box, and outside of that, and just move forward, because will they be upset? Yeah, probably so. Will that cause maybe some tension? Maybe a little bit, maybe more, but you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? If I'm doing something for myself and stepping out there, because a lot of people, again, like I said, will put that fear on you because they have their own fears, right? And you can't continue to carry that on, especially when it comes to something like, transitioning to a new city, state, even a new job. And I'm actually going to do an episode about this later in the series to explore what it's like to make a career change, but what it's like to make a career change, and looking at how people get stuck, whether it be in our hometowns or certain settings. But a lot of times they get stuck in their job because it's comfortable, it's convenient, and it's safe, right? But they hate the job. And of course, these things are very important. You want to have some type of security. Don't get me wrong, but there's other places that can offer you that same thing. It just takes you taking a little bit of a risk and, believing in yourself, right? And it's just things to take into consideration, and then having those difficult conversations with your families is something you have to do. And then on the other hand, letting them know, hey, this is where I am right now, and I'm asking you to respect that. But I think a lot of the times, especially when with young adults, it's that weird transition of, I was 17, 18 in high school a few years ago, and now I'm 22 graduating, and I want to make my own decisions, but my family's not ready. They're not ready. Not me. My family's not ready.
Exactly. And that's something I have to say is like, generally, like, yes, like I said before, we had the chatter and stuff, but generally speaking, like, we knew how much our family loved us, and overall they supported what we wanted to do. Like, it was one of those things, like, yeah, you read between the lines, you see that mom is sad or grandma is sad, or that kind of thing, but I'm very grateful that that we had that love and support. And we're very fortunate to know that we always had a place to fall back on if we did stumble. And not everybody has that, and so I know I'm speaking from a place of privilege, in that manner of that we knew we had that safety net if we needed it. And but looking back, it's like everything we did was an intentional choice, with my husband and I at the forefront, and our relationship at the forefront, and we did what we needed to do for us and for our hearts. And like you said, getting stuck in a place, and it's like, I remember when we left Lubbock the second time, that was a tough conversation to have with my in-laws, because that was, they were so happy that we were back, and then all of a sudden we're like, just kidding, we're gone again. Exactly. But they were also very supportive, and they understood that we really gave it a shot, to be able to stay there the second time. But yeah, we just needed to spread our wings, as they say. Yes, for sure.
Oh, I love that. It's like a little true love story there, and y'all did indeed spread your wings. So, with that, Emily, we've touched on some good things about what the transition can look like from a personal standpoint, and, the effects that it had on you. I really appreciate you being so transparent and sharing some of those personal things with us today and how that has worked for you. So, before we wrap up, to get things going today, of course, we have our game, Ready, Set, Reset. And everybody that comes on Ready, Set, Reset, they have to play the game. So, I hope you're ready. And if you're not, get ready, because it's coming. So the game is called the stress test. And so being in the field, you never know what you'll encounter with folks. And oftentimes you have to think efficient and be quick on your feet, right? So the stress test is going to test that. So you'll have 60 seconds to answer 10 questions. The time will start after I read the first question. If you can't come up with the answer, say skip and we'll come back to it. But we will come back to it if we do have time. Okay, are you ready?
All right. I'm taking my deep breaths here, get in the right zone.
Get ready. Spell the word astronaut.
Oh my gosh. Hold on, I gotta finger spell. ASTRONAUT.
Name a vegetable.
Broccoli.
How much does a stamp cost?
Oh. Wow. I need to phone a friend. Grandma, how much does a stamp cost? Gosh, like 37 cents now, maybe? Mine say forever, so.
Okay. How many cities have you lived in?
8.
Name a word that rhymes with state.
Debate.
Name a Disney character.
Belle. Princess Belle. Hello.
Okay. Name a board game.
Candyland.
Name a state that starts with the letter W.
Washington.
Chick-fil-A or Cane's?
Chick-fil-A.
10 seconds. Name a funny movie.
Step Brothers.
All right, 5 seconds. How much does a stamp cost?
35 cents.
And you're out of time.
Oh.
So you got 9 out of 10. Not bad.
How much does a dang stamp cost?
So a stamp costs 73 cents.
I am appalled. Oh my gosh.
So this came up for Emily because she oddly always has a stamp in her purse when someone needs one.
Yeah.
So I thought, of course, she knows how much a stamp costs.
Yeah. See, the reason I don't is because I buy them once every 5
Just
years.
holding on to
That's
them.
how I use them.
So you got caught slipping today, but hey, you still got 9 out of 10. That shows you have the ability to withstand the stress in the midst of whatever's thrown your way, right? So overall, how are you feeling with working through that? I know that first question stressed you out quite a bit.
Yeah, it did. That was a long word. It was really funny because when I listened to the previous podcast in the series, I was like trying to keep fresh in my mind on the rhymes. I was like, the rhymes always trip me up in the other episode. So I was happy to get a good rhyme. But man, I knew you threw that stamp question in for me.
It was custom created just for you. Well, all right, Miss Emily, I appreciate you sitting down with me today to talk about what it's like to take that leap of faith to transition to a new state, new city, and the adjustment that comes with it. But before we close, if you could leave our listeners, maybe those who that may be considering moving to a new state, new city, moving out of their parents' house in general, and the transition is just on the horizon, what would you say to them?
Yeah. So do it.
Do it.
Just do
Just
it.
like
Take
Nike.
that leap of faith. Going back to the fear thing, fear versus love. It's like, if you let that fear be the prominent voice in your mind, then it probably won't work out. But if you can get that under control, find yourself some good affirmations and, maybe some mindfulness techniques and whatnot, then definitely, do what you need to do to get the right mindset to look at it positively. Because if you feel negative about it, if you feel just apprehension and just fear, then maybe that's not the right move. Maybe, your path is leading you somewhere else.
Yeah.
But just another quote that I keep in my back pocket for these rough times is, both faith and fear require you to believe in something you can't see. So it's like, if you're just assuming it's going to turn out bad, well, challenge yourself on that. Like, what are all the positive things that could come from this? How could this be amazing? So just keep that in check and make sure the loudest voice in your head is a positive one. And
Okay, speak. Well said. That might just make me step out on my faith. Just to add real quick, if you could move to another country or a state, where would you move to?
Norway. Hands down,
Norway,
Norway.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. What about you?
I would go to the Netherlands. My husband and I
Really?
have
Oh, we'd
actually
be neighbors.
brought this up a couple times over the years, and we just love it there. But I had to throw that in just to see if that's been on the radar for you, because I figured so. But hey, well, that's all for us today. Thanks for tuning in and taking time out of your day to listen in on mental health. And remember, sometimes all it takes is resetting your outlook. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ready, Set, Reset 1. Follow us on Instagram at ready_set_reset1 for mental health tips, laughs, and motivation. And if you know a student or have a child in the Fort Worth area that could use some additional support, visit our website at sunflowersigma.com to see if Reset IOP is right for them. You will find the resources discussed in today's podcast in the description area.